activism is at an all-time high, and people have shown massive support towards the Black Lives Matter movement. But there was also a decline in support after reaching its peak in mainstream. There are still active allies, but some, mainly white people, have been quiet for some time now. I'm going to describe these kinds of white allies from worst to best. Now, obviously, this is my opinion, and there's no set standard for how allies should be, but I hope y'all keep an open mind and think how your activism is either helping or hurting causes. But first, let me educate you on a few things. White privilege. It doesn't mean you're meant to feel guilty, can't come from a difficult background, can't struggle financially, and don't experience injustices. What it means is that your struggles are not related to the color of your skin. You get to learn about racism rather than having to experience it firsthand. Your ancestors weren't enslaved and didn't have to fight for their civil rights. Therefore, you have a responsibility to actively work towards racial equality. Now, of course, intersectionality is a thing, and white people can hold marginalized identities as well, but you're white first. White fragility. Discomfort and defensiveness on the part of a white person when confronted by information about racial inequality and injustice. Racism. Prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism directed against a person or people on the basis of their membership in a particular racial or ethnic group, typically one that is a minority or marginalized. Unequal treatment of minorities from the majority. Whites can be racist towards people of color. People of color can be racist towards each other. But people of color can't be racist towards whites. As a black woman in America, I hold a reasonable amount of bias against white strangers, mainly as a defense mechanism. And finally, reverse racism. It's a myth, it's not real. Moving on to the rankings. Do you lot not understand what a peaceful protest is? Oh, let me guess. You've watched The Hunger Games, Divergent, and The Last Airbender over 10 times and think you're prepared to take down an oppressive regime. You're probably one of those white girls on TikTok making cringy revolution videos, such as, ooh woo, outfits protesters are gonna wear. You see revolution as a niche aesthetic you'd like to wear rather than getting involved. But if you want to live your PG fantasy of toppling the government, by all means, be our human shields. How about you find some solutions grounded in reality and put the fiction aside before you get someone hurt? Like, oh my gosh, everyone that's supporting BLM are getting lots of likes online. Better hop on this trend to show how progressive I am and to boost my own ego. Hashtag Black Square. Oh my gosh, shut up. The same people that put BLM in their Twitter are somehow also telling black people what they should or shouldn't be upset about. Your pinned tweet of BLM petitions is your only contribution towards activism. But hey, you're not like other white people. You have one friend of color whom you rely on for advice you ignore and take advantage of their presence so you can make jokes at their expense. Such as having the N-word pass, and that you're darker and more black than they are because you're tan. You have good intentions and wish to help, but you have a bad tendency to speak for us. You're brash and quick to lash out at stuff you think people of color would be offended by. You get mad over nothing and think you can commentate on it. And yet, you expect to be praised for your weak heroism and feel proud to be part of the solution, but instead, you're a different problem altogether. A great example of this is when people tried to cancel Quackity, a Mexican YouTuber, for speaking Spanish. Y'all are so exhausting and need to stop. You recognize and check y'all privilege and act as an echo chamber for our voices. You've educated yourself on racial inequalities without completely relying on making your POC friends tell you about their experiences with racism. You also listen to your POC friends' rants without dismissing their feelings or thinking they're overreacting to a racist issue or microaggression. Key difference here being that they feel like they can trust you versus you pestering them to relive trauma for your convenience. You don't pry into communities or try relating to our struggles. You sign petitions, donate what you can, and share resources on and offline. You confront and educate other white people to be aware of racial issues. You don't look for, nor do you need, thanks or social recognition. You're considerate and aware of how much space you take up. Oh, you are definitely invited to the cookout, but never allowed to bring a dish. At least that's how I view these white allies. So to gain more insight, I interviewed my token white cis straight friend. I'm kidding. He's not straight. I just want to start off this interview by saying I'm a black woman, he's a white male. We don't speak for our respective group. We're just speaking upon ourselves and our own opinions. But who? But that never stopped Twitter from getting angry. So who cares?
Mm-hmm.
So, Angel, my
Yeah.
my token white friend.
Ah.
You're not a token to me. You're one of my
No.
closest white friends.
Oh. Thank you, Ortiz. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you, you lovable bean. So now, what my question for you is, what does it mean to be an ally to you?
Okay. You gave me this question prior to this interview, and I've tried to think about it, and but I'm actually going to first point out it's this. It's less talking, more listening. That is one of the first things I think that being an ally really entails, because I mean, in the sense that allies need to play a more supportive role. We are not meant to be in the limelight. We are not supposed to be where attention is focused. In fact, we are probably the last people who need attention in this position.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but with that too, it's actually, I'm so sorry. What were you about to say? I
No,
apologize.
I'm just agreeing. You're spitting facts.
Good. Thank you. I'm glad. But more than that too, um, I'd say being an ally is, as we're thankfully starting to see more of it, it's more than just saying that things like racism is bad or that, wow, racism against black people doesn't exist anymore. No, it is being actively the antithesis of everything that deals with discrimination. You are purposefully getting out there. You are not letting, like, even something as casual as like a slight wow, that was really dumb. But or like anything, just like a snide comment about someone's appearance or like how they wore their hair today or the way that, I don't know, someone's talking. You need to be active and you need to shut that shit down. Actually, I'm so sorry. I need to ask if I can swear or not. I have
You're good.
feelings.
I on and off swear, so I don't give a fuck.
Okay, just wanted to check. Yeah, no. Allies shut down other people's bullshit because there is far too much, and I feel like, wow, I feel like I'm even holding myself back right now, and I'm so sorry. But
Hey, go
I'm
off.
actually going to try to restrain myself from talking too much. But really, I know that the biggest thing that an ally needs to do is make sure that they are listening. They need to make sure that they are being actively anti-racist, especially when just being a black ally. And might I also just say and take a moment here while I have the soapbox, if you don't mind. Being a black ally does not mean that you are only an ally for your friends. It is not that you're only an ally for your loved ones. You are being an ally for the entire black community. That does not make you a white savior. That does not make you any sort of superhero. You just need to understand that if you're going to support and be an ally for like black people in general, you are doing it for everyone. And I don't know if you agree with that or not, Artis, but that's just kind of my perspective.
Hell yes, because some people just want to pick and choose who they want to support because it's even kind of rampant. It is rampant in the black community itself because there's a lot of internalized homophobia. And when we say Black Lives Matter, we talk about all Black Lives Matter, not just our black cis men and women, our black trans folks, our black LGBTQA folks, our black disabled folks. When we say Black Lives Matter, we encompass everyone. Black Lives Matter. Our biracial folks, our mixed folks. You got black in you, you're part of that movement. You're with
Exactly.
you're within that sphere that you should be protected.
Mm-hmm. No, and I agree with that, and that makes me happy to hear that. And might I just say that if you are not black, you can be an amazing supporter. And guess what? You don't have to have all of the attention on you. In fact, you can use this is the next thing that I was going to say. When you are an ally in almost any cause, but especially for movements like Black Lives Matter or just supporting black people, like I mean, like you even mentioned earlier, I am literally a white cis dude. Like the amount of privilege I have is disgusting. There are some days that I'm not going to turn that into a pity party because that is the exact issue that we're dealing with. Utilizing your privilege to help uplift other people around you is one of the best things that you can do as an ally. You, I'm certain, have your days when you are just going to be adored by people all around you simply because you blew your nose in some cute Kleenex or whatever. And that seems very like over dramatic, but sometimes I do notice that there is just like the bare minimum being done, especially by white allies, and then they are praised for it. And then we take a look over at literally an entire community of people and just black people in general who are just like, can you help us? And then all of like the kudos and praise are being given to just a couple allies. So wrapping this back around, utilizing your privilege and using your clout and using your resources to lift up black people is kind of the entire point of being an ally, might I just say. I don't know, again, if you agree with that or not, but
In my personal opinion, because this is between us, and of course, we're not a monolith and we don't speak for our respective identities, I
no.
100% agree with you.
Yeah. And again, also too, and I thank you for reminding me of that because I know that I can get a little excited because I'm sure that not everyone can see that that's the exact same formula. But I think that if you, at least one way to be a really strong ally is listening, following, being actively anti-racist, and then furthermore working towards improving situations. We're not just slapping a band-aid on. I mean, yes, it is so important that like going out and helping and signing petitions or providing funding for Black Lives Matter movements or events or anything like that, but actively working to prevent and repair damage that has been done to the Black community. Because I'm sure that we could talk for ages, and we can if you would like to, but there's a lot to be done, and it's not, again, not an ally's job to be a savior, but I mean, if you want to be helpful and you want to like be a member that is contributing positively, you do that. And then finally, using said privilege and said resources to help make the situation better. So then that way things can get better in the future and stay that way.
Very well said. Very well put, too. Thank you, Angel. I think
Thank you.
you kind of like dove into the second question already, and we can keep rolling off of that if you want. My second question was going to be, what role does white allies have in activism?
Well, believe it or not, I actually feel that white allies in particular have a very distinct role as opposed to a lot of others with Latina or LGBTQ allies or anyone that kind of falls that is outside of the white circle, because I've had to try to figure out how I wanted to phrase this, but I really just can't think of it any other way. When you are a white person, like, again, like I said, like the amount of privilege and the amount of just ridiculousness that kind of comes with being white, there's just so much. I can't even put it into words. The thing is that being white, I will never be able to experience what any of my Black friends, any of my Indigenous friends, any of my Asian friends, and I'm sorry, I know that's a really widespread brush because I understand that we also deal with a lot of like needing to even integrate and acknowledge the fact that we are dealing with like Southeast Asian friends and everything, and that's not really what we're talking about. I'm sorry, but it's getting past and making sure to really leave. I guess I could put it this way, leaving your whiteness at the door and just focusing on being a positive force. Because there is so much garbage that is left behind, and there are so many bad habits that even I still need to unlearn. I need to just be honest with that and acknowledging the fact that you are going to fuck up as a white ally. And you need to use that moment to reconstruct yourself, figure out how to do better next time. Because honestly, as one of the most privileged social groups in the US, if not the entire freaking world. I know that check your privilege might be kind of cliche, but just understanding how widespread white influence is. And I'm sorry, and I don't know if that seems like a little bit of an overstretch or not, Artiste, but just like, I mean, like when I stop and think about it, I feel, you know what, I've been talking for a while. I want to hear from you. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's okay. I mean, hey, I put you in the hot seat. It's kind of fun interrogating.
No,
But
I'm glad. And sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like earlier in the video, I give some basic definitions of like white fragility, what racism is, and white privilege. Like I've already like talked about and established it. What white privilege doesn't mean that you should feel guilty that it doesn't mean you're meant to feel guilty that you can't come from a background of struggle financially, that you
1000%.
Yeah, and that you don't experience like injustices yourself, because intersectionality is a thing. But what it does mean, hang on a minute, I gotta look at my notes. Oh, what it means is that your struggle and injustices are not related to the color of your skin. Like it's morbid to think about, but I go there sometimes to get the point across. Like, imagine you see a homeless person, you see two homeless people on the street, one's black, one's white. You're gonna have a different reaction to the white one versus the black one. But okay, I'm just gonna say it. Sometimes when I come across white homeless people, they put me more on edge as compared to the black folks.
No, 1000%. And I know that I've experienced similar situations before. Like that is, it's something that I have to at least acknowledge whenever that happens, and I need to unlearn that and go. And I mean, okay, I keep using the word unlearn, but I need to acknowledge that every time and make sure that I'm recognizing the situation is that what I'm going to stop speaking, because that's just.
Or something that's, I think a better example would be if, this is arbitrary, but if not, in a COVID-less world, if we had kissing booths, and if a black person ran a kissing booth, and then a white person ran a kissing booth, or any kind of person of color running a kissing booth, as opposed to a white person running it, who do you think they're going to run more to?
I can almost certainly agree with you that it is probably going, as I'm going to guess what you're going to say, that it's probably to the kissing booth with the white person. And I agree with that entirely. When I go on Twitter or Facebook, when you look at the amount of followers that people have, it is sometimes such a stark contrast when you see like black artists and white artists. And it's just like, oh my gosh, that's insane. So.
My guesstimate is that the few who go to the black kissing booth is that they fetishize black people. And that is a whole nother bag of worms for another day. Because like I get so pissed off just thinking of my brothers and sisters, my siblings getting just. We deserve so much better.
One more time.
We deserve better. We are not objects of affection.
No, absolutely not. And I mean, I can just say that outright. It's always made me incredibly uncomfortable to see that. And I mean, benefiting and profiting.
Especially white women wanting biracial babies. Fetishizing our babies.
Fetishizing is just disgusting. No, it's horrible. I mean, I only have so much from my own perspective, but
yeah. And when we say white people, obviously, I'm not talking about all white people. I'm talking about the ones that do that. If you feel defensive or you're in that camp of people who are like, I don't fetishize biracial babies and black people, well, then you don't need to get defensive.
No. And would it be okay for me to maybe add something as well onto that?
Go ahead.
Even if that isn't talking about all white people, I do think that it's very important to take a moment to recognize that even if there is one area that you can vehemently say that you don't even have to get defensive about fetishizing or anything, at the very least, you can use that moment to stop and think about where you're at and ways that you can just be a better ally in that moment. Because like I mentioned earlier, you need to be active as an ally and quickly shut down that shit, because that's not okay for it to exist in the first place, regardless if you are the perpetrator or otherwise.
Exactly. Okay. And this segues perfectly into the last question I have for you is, do you think white people are oppressed?
The only thing white people are oppressed by are their absolutely humongous, enormous, titanic, in their face, blocking all sort of other view, tunnel vision egos. That is the only thing that they have, and that is their own damn fault.
That facts.
I mean, also too, I guess you could blame you could blame the fact that it's like been integrated into every system to cause problems like that. But again, people need to take acknowledgement for the fact that, kind of like what you were mentioning earlier, white fragility. There is actually no oppression. There's not. People can be oppressed for other identities, but I can almost say with certainty that there is not white oppression. There's not.
Right. And I think a lot of people might disagree with me because of the definition of racism, but there's always that. There's always the other, there's always like the last sentence of that definition people conveniently leave out when they're talking about like, if I talk about like white stereotypes, like, y'all don't cook your food, you don't know how to dance, you're off rhythm, you're so cringy. Which most of those are kind of true. Y'all don't season your food.
As a 6'2" white dude, I can pretty much say that almost all of those things still remain true for me. But
yeah, that it's. I've already like went over this in the video about the definition of racism, but it's needs to be mentioned again for those in the back that racism is the prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism directed against a person or people on the basis of their membership in a particular racial or ethnic group, typically one that is a minority or marginalized.
Exactly.
Who is marginalized and minorities? I'm like waving my hand in front of my face. Me, bitch! Me and my other people who look like me! And people who ain't white.
Yeah. Pretty much people who ain't white. Yeah, that's... Yeah.
Yeah, and some people think that, like I said, like saying white people can't do this, white people can't do that, y'all don't season your food, which you don't. Some people think that's racist towards white people. And I'd argue, no, it's not. It's because I'm not unfairly treating white people based on their actions. Hang on, redact that. The way I see it, for myself personally, here's how I see it. White people can be racist towards people of color because, like, history. You pick up a textbook, not the false ones they learn in school, like a real textbook. People of color can hold prejudices and be discriminatory against other people of color. Black people arguing with Asian or Latinx people. It's happened before. I've seen it. It ain't pretty. I don't know how far that goes. It's saying if it's racist or not, because we're both like, we're both in the same pool of being minorities. I don't know how many. Well, I do know that like black people don't make up a large part of the population, but I don't know.
I mean, if I remember my nursing statistics correctly, like there's still a pretty large. I mean, to my understanding, like at least in the U.S., there's a very large black population. Like, just in general, I think it's probably more than is probably documented as well. Because then you go into things like the government actually checking in on black communities and like taking census there and everything. But
yeah, and so establishing that. So we established that white people can be racist towards people of color. People of color can be racist towards each other. But I think people of color can't be racist towards white people. Because, like, as a black woman in America, I hold a reasonable amount of bias against white strangers I don't know, just as a defense mechanism. If I'm walking, like Angel, for example, if I didn't know you, if I had no idea who you are, if I did not know you for like the past 5 years, and I know now how much of a sweet, gentle giant you are.
no,
If I walked down the street and I saw you, I have no idea who you are. You're just a very tall, lengthy white boy. I could probably take you on, but I'm
not
gonna...
probably. You can take me on.
Yeah, I'd probably beat your ass.
Yeah.
But if I saw...
work it out. No. Okay, finish your story. I'm sorry.
But if I walked down the street and I saw you, I have no idea who you are, I'm gonna be on edge. I'm gonna tense up. I'm gonna either try to backtrack to the point where you just pass along and I just keep going about my merry way, or just try very hard to make myself look small.
No, and
yeah, that's just like, to me, that's not prejudice. That's a defense mechanism. An ingrained one at that.
Yeah, and that's actually, I would totally agree with that. That's like that makes complete sense. Like when you look at it from a psychological standpoint, everything that you just explained to me is the same way that like an abused child would try to shirk away from their parent.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, of course, suck, but like we're at a point now that without trying to sound cliche or anything, like, I mean, it's just horrible that has gotten to this point, because it's more than horrible, but yeah, no, entirely. And I completely empathize and would entirely understand why you would do that.
Yes, and because I know someone's going to be like, well, what if the roles were reversed? Okay, if the roles were reversed, if I was walking down the street and you didn't know me, and you were walking down the street, you'd either feel like, walk straight on by without a care in the world, or because of what the media's people's perception of black people, you'd either feel on edge for the wrong reasons.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. And I think I can say with certainty that that is something that I've experienced before.
Ooh, can you elaborate on that? If you're comfortable.
I mean, basically, like you mentioned, like it's either the fact that I just don't even think about the situation at all, and like that's just something that is just so far gone from my mind when I would like walk by a black person on the street, or kind of like what we were talking about earlier, it's just like that there's a bit of edge in everything. Now, no time to retreat. Like that there is like that sort of edge on everything, because then you have to deal with then I take into account like everything that I hear from my parents. You hear everything from the media that is just slowly leaked into your brain at this point, and then you kind of feel your heart race a little bit, and you're like, oh my gosh. But then simultaneously, and I don't know, this is not me trying to cover my ass or anything like that. Mm-hmm. I'm thankfully at a point that I'm like, hang on, why the hell are you even reacting like this way? But it is true. It happens still. And I don't think that that's okay. But like, no, it does happen.
Yes. So. Yeah, and from my family, I was taught you gotta work like twice as hard to get half as much, and be aware of your surroundings and protect yourself. Mm-hmm.
No, 1,000%.
Oh, and especially in like these climates of quote unquote mysterious lynchings happening, and the police, I swear to this day, I don't care. All cops are bastards to me. I give no Fs. And I want to share this story, because I shared it on my TikTok, but I want to share it here. That one day when I was walking up and down the street waiting for a haircut appointment, I decided to just like sit by a bus stop while I wait, and I saw like the sheriff van driving down the street, and I immediately was scared for my life. I got tense. I wanted to I had to feel like, okay, I gotta pretend like I'm waiting for the bus and just sit, be nonchalant, make myself small as possible. And then I caught myself in the moment thinking, this is what has happened. It's gotten to the point where I cannot trust police, especially.
No.
It's sad, especially like I know there are people of color in law enforcement, but there are also people of color who either perpetuate or are too scared to say something when like shit like that goes down. And I'm like, I do not want to see my name plastered. I don't want to be another. You know what I mean? I just don't. I just don't.
You don't deserve. No one should just be a statistic, Artis. Absolutely not. And I'm sorry. That's very easy, of course, for me to say, because I'm sure that in that same situation, I know that I could just sit there scot-free. And my whole big thing is that I'm worried about that there's someone who is unfortunately not who is dealing with mental illness. Like that's where my mind has to go. But I know that I could sit on that same bench. The sheriff's car could drive by me, and as much as I could loathe him and lob spite at him, I'm not going to feel that same anxiety. And it's disgusting that it's gotten to this point.
Yeah. And like, I'd rather take my chances with a home invasion than call the police. Well, shit, with a home invasion, at least I know these mofos are going to take my shit. If I call the police, they're going to take my life.
I'm sorry, I know that that's not funny, but...
That's kind of funny, though.
Nah.
It's that dark humor.
Nah, fuck cops, ACAB.
Major A
I know
club.
I don't say it nearly enough on my social media, but yeah, ACAB.
Yeah. NWA
No.
was right. Fuck the police.
I know that we're primarily focusing. I feel like the majority of our focus has been on me in my own perceptions of being a white ally and how to do that well. But might I also just say, once again on my soapbox, if you are not actively like investigating and holding law enforcement accountable for the bullshit that they pull on the daily, you are not being a good ally. I can just say that outright.
Yes, because there are times that I just want to in, into the face of like a police officer, especially a white one, and just give them a piece of my mind. But I can't because I'm gonna jeopardize the safety of my whole being, and I don't feel like catching hand. I don't feel like dying over these hands that need to get caught.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, pretty much. And it's horrible. And I even keep using like all these like really negative like words to describe the situation, but I don't even think that they can hold a candle to just like how fuck shit up is really.
They don't really
So
hold a torch.
sorry?
They can't hold a torch to this situation.
A torch, yeah, a torch. A torch is a much better way to do that. But going back to, I mean, I'm glad that we kind of circled around to this conversation, but yeah, absolutely not. White people aren't oppressed. There is so much racism involved that goes on the daily, and being aware of when even an ally does something that is stupid and prejudiced or racist is probably one of the other things that I might actually toss in, is recognizing when you fuck up and then being better and listening to your black siblings when they do that. Actually, I don't know if I know that's a weird way to put that, but pretty much that's
I'm
how I
trying to
feel.
like say more siblings to be more like inclusive because I know we have black trans folks too, black brothers and sisters, black non-binary folks.
Yeah, I mean, no, I was saying that insofar as like I understand that as a white dude, I'm not a part of the black community, but just as people in general, that my black siblings, they shouldn't have to deal with this bullshit, and I will never deal with the same crap that you all have done. And yes, I can feel bad, but the best way to do that is that when I fuck up, I need to make sure that I'm learning, and then also proceeding to share that knowledge with people around me, because it is not black people's job to tell people how to not be racist. They got to do it on their own.
Yes, and especially white allies should not talk for black people or people in color in general. Because sometimes it's mainly a lot of this shit that goes down on Twitter that there's stuff that goes on that
Mm-hmm.
that white people feel like, oh, you can't do that. That's really uber offensive. But if a person of color, if like y'all more offended over something that we haven't got a chance to analyze and be like, yep, that's no good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but like something as small as like say like a big Hollywood actor decides, hey everyone, I got white sheets in my master bedroom. I tell me why can I imagine Twitter just being like, well, why do you have white sheets in your master bedroom, huh, massa?
Because they complain about dumb shit like that. Twitter is a even though it's my main cool source of where I tend to do most of my social media, it is a hot mess. But
Sometimes they're right,
yeah.
but they miss the ball every other
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Well, this has been very insightful. Thank you so much, Angel,
Good.
for sitting down in my hot seat and giving me a chance to pick your brain. Because
Of course. I hope that this. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say because I feel like hearing it just from me, uh, no one's gonna like listen because no one listens to people of color when they want to complain and just think that we're over exaggerating.
And God forbid, like then half the time when I see the posts about people not listening to black women, and I'm just like, that is first of all a very bad idea because you need to just be listening to everyone. But yeah, no, it is the unfortunate truth that I'm here. But you want to know something, Artiste? I so appreciate that you took time and that you wanted to hear my opinion on this, and I hope that it is beneficial to just kind of pick my brain, and that for anyone listening to just take a minute and consider how that they can be a better ally and uplift Black people, because honestly, we are at a point that just needs to be the norm ingrained in people, and we can do this. It's just going to take a lot more effort and a lot less sitting on the bench and getting active.
Yes, exactly. And wow, I didn't notice this until now, but like you are, well, at least in a sense of geographically speaking, you are like, as a white male, you are the least oppressed person, and and I, as a Black woman, am the most, according to Malcolm X, is the most oppressed person. But I don't want, this ain't no oppression Olympics. I'm not here
No,
to...
definitely not. No, I went into this conversation, and I mean, I had to think about that going into this. Like, I am at the top of the sociological food chain in American society. I am a straight, well, no, I am, well, okay. Yes, I'm a bisexual male, and if you get that on my docket, sure, then that kind of takes off a few of like the privilege points or whatever you want to call it. But like, I am a cis white male. Like, everything in this country was designed for me, and it sucks. And I know that, and like you said, this isn't oppression Olympics, but it means a lot to me to hear that you appreciate me as an ally. And honestly, Artis, I am very happy and just overly blessed that you are in my life. And honestly, you've been a huge part of my journey in trying to be a better ally. And I'm sorry if that's super cliche and mushy, but honestly, I understand that with my own upbringing, I needed to go on my own journey myself to learn, but you've been just a huge influence, and I love listening to you and your wisdom. So thank you.
And I thank you, because like, when initially doing this video, I thought of you because you would be perfect to interview, because to me, you are a model white ally. You stay in your lane, you help out when you can, and you check people, and I just feel like you good people with a good heart, and you've definitely been by my side for such a long time, and I appreciate the hell out of you. And hey, you're definitely invited to my cookouts. I can't say the rest for everyone else, but you're invited to my cookouts.
No more bland food.
Yes. Yes, sugar. Just don't bring your own plate.
Can I bring my macaroni and cheese?
No, hell no. That's the last thing I want you to bring. Not to my fucking cookout. Get the hell out of here. You eating good mac and cheese. You getting some good baked shit. Get your shit out of here. I love you. I told you don't bring your own dish.
Yeah, yes, Artis. Understood.
The most you should be bringing with you is tinfoil.
Okay, I can do that. I'll bring tinfoil to the cookout.
There you go. That'll give you some brownie points with my family.
Okay.
Bring some paper plates and some tinfoil. My family will love you.
I can do that. Oh, and I'll help clean dishes. How about that?
We probably just don't want you in the kitchen at all.
That's fair.
Okay. Thank you so much. We're gonna be signing off.
Yep. No, this was awesome. Thank you so much, Artis. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on here.
Thank you for letting me subject you to this.
I hope that I gave genuine answers as best as I can, and I tried to dig around and tried to make sure to not skirt around anything, because, like you said, we have a torch situation right here. And I'm going to stop talking now. Thank you all very much for listening. Please make sure that you're giving Artis all of your love. She is an amazing artist, and I am, again, just over the moon that she's one of my closest friends. So,
I'll start. Continue. Go on. No, go on. No, I'm kidding.
No.
All right. Well, I hope I left you all with something to think about, and hopefully there won't be as much arguing. But, you know, internet day and age, you can't have an opinion over anything. Racism is very nuanced, not as black and white. It's a discussion that we can keep going forward, but I hope morally that this gives you, like, something to think about.
Mm-hmm.